Well, today we have a great fireside chat with the great folks of Suddath. So we have Sean Ledbury and we have Kim Dinkins today. And we're just going to have some really good open dialogue about what the journey has been like for Suddath. And we are specifically looking at what we're referring to as the other side of Agile. So we're really honing in on the business side, the stakeholder side of Agile. We oftentimes talk about and focus on how Agile teams are doing and maybe even some aspects of the program. And we will talk about some of those things as well, but we really want to come from the perspective of the business and some of the stakeholders. So welcome, Sean and Kim.
Thank you.
Hey, Quincy.
All right, so if you would just maybe introduce yourself quickly, name, position, title, that kind of thing.
I'll go first, Kim.
Sure. Kim Dinkins. I am with Suddath Government Services. I've been with Suddath about 26 years, always on the accounting and finance side. And my current role is leading the finance organization for our government services business unit. So,
And Sean Ledbury, been with Suddath for 8 years. I've been in IT project management, large banking, better part of 25 years. But my role, but I'm the overall program manager and VP of innovation on the Suddath technology side, but also managing the program across business and technology. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's just kind of open it up with going down this Agile journey and some of the differences between prior to going down this journey and what you've experienced since going down the journey. So, Kim, in the finance arena and on the business side, what are some of the differences that you've seen with interacting in an Agile environment with Agile teams, specifically from your point of view on the business side?
So I think what has helped going through this journey with AgileThought on the current development that we're working on is we have those periodic check-ins, and it's with a large group. So, every couple weeks we are kind of getting back together, discussing, kind of resetting where were we, what have we done this past 2 weeks, and actually getting to kind of see the results in action. And it's been very helpful to kind of understand, what functionality we're actually developing. And then we're able to, kind of discuss issues or pitfalls with what's happening so we can kind of change course if we need to for further development, or, well, what about this? What about that? Did you consider that? And also the collaboration. So with our project, we've had great collaboration with the development folks that are actually building the system and multiple product owners on the business side. So we'll have representation from our operations division, sales, finance, where we're all coming together and kind of deciding on the functionality that's being delivered and if it works for the whole team. So that's been really great, because in my history with kind of being a product owner or stakeholder on some development, it was kind of like just me and one other person on the development side. And it was like, I hope that I'm developing, a great product for the entire team, but, it's just me and this other person, and we're, doing the best we can. So the collaborative effort has been really good.
Nice. So it sounds like going from, to some degree, working in a vacuum to working in a more collaborative way where there's more transparency, more discussion, more opportunity for feedback. Sounds like that's been really beneficial for you and a good experience.
Absolutely.
And so what's something that maybe you would say that you've learned in that process?
I have learned that I'm going to give that one to Sean.
Oh yes, no, we have plenty of opportunities that we've kind of learned from that perspective. Having been in technology project management, even software development for my whole career, kind of going from that historic waterfall, big builds, big durations, and honestly big misses, and kind of that transition to working in regular sprints and experimenting, and really, conceptually we knew it, but AgileThought has really helped us on that journey. Is conceptually we knew where we needed to be, but kind of how we went there. And Quincy, I think you kind of mentioned it. It's a journey, and we've kind of learned throughout the ways. So definitely plenty of examples, but at the highest level, that probably kind of capstones, our journey and where we are.
Yeah. So along the way, along that journey, and some of the things that you've learned and experienced, oftentimes clients will have a need to scale. And one of the things that has been more unique with Suddath is the opportunity to scale up and scale down. And oftentimes clients, they need to scale up, but they don't always need to scale down, or they don't always anticipate scaling down. So being able to scale up and scale down, and then possibly scale back up again, what has that experience been like from a program manager point of view, and making business decisions, and making budgetary decisions, and those types of things? How has working in this way made a difference? If it has, what has that experience been like?
Yeah, no, definitely. Before Kim, this one's you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll take that one, because as I was reflecting on this call today, I was thinking about the way our project has evolved over the last couple of years. And the project that we have taken on is daunting. I mean, we are basically rethinking our whole system based on, what it could be. And so we have had we've had to shift gears a couple of times throughout this process, and I love the analogies that Sean has helped us with, is, we're going to walk versus run, and sprint versus marathon. And we've had to do that a couple of times, but I feel like when we've had to do that scale back, we haven't lost the momentum that we could have, lost, because the project is still moving forward. It's just that it's moving at a different pace, and we haven't lost the resources and we've lost the resources, but we haven't lost the direction of where we're going, and we are still moving forward. And now that we have a plan to kind of ramp right back up. So it's been nice to have that roadmap that you can easily kind of put the brakes on, or move fast.
Nice. And so when you're making those budgetary decisions, without going into any length of detail or anything, but what are some of the factors that you're considering in that process with the scaling up and scaling down? Are you only looking at number of team members, or are you also looking at, well, what do we think we can accomplish in X amount of time with X number of team members, this size program? Just what are some of the decisions that are being impacted from a budgetary standpoint, working in this way?
I'll give that one to you, Sean.
Absolutely. And the nice thing what we've had is, we need to almost consider it at all. But probably one of the ones that really weighed in, because based on this, I've been in projects where you're going and then it's just put on a shelf. And that wasn't the case. It truly is different speeds and different deliverables there. But kind of what really helped decide the factor when we did need to slow down is what, based on where we were at that time, what could give us the most benefit the quickest. So, everything, ultimately we have to do it all, but what would bring value to the business as soon as possible? And that was kind of the deciding factor. Obviously, kind of talent, kind of went into that, can we deliver that? But it gave us the option to objectively look where we are. We knew where we needed to be, but then, all right, we consider different options. And at the end, we kind of decided, as a business, what made the most sense, in this current duration to focus on. And, and we'll probably go into it, but, the team, they've had to switch gears as well, and they're headed in a direction. And then, some of them, significantly pivot, repurpose. So that's kind of been the fun and difficult. I mean, Kim made it sound easy. It's been work, but end of the day, we're producing good results, good software, good business process for the business.
And the way that the project was kind of organized into, I don't know what you call them because I'm not on the technology side, but they kind of had different teams working on different aspects of the development. And I think, and I think that allowed us to, when we needed to step back, kind of take a look at what was in that backlog and determine, what we needed to kind of put the brakes on or could put the brakes on versus what we could keep moving forward with. So that was really nice.
Yeah, and I really have appreciated the way that you have phrased some of the things, Kim. So for example, when you were referring to the backlogs just then, and then earlier you were referring to the sprints, but you just said, well, we'll have, we have these check-ins every 2 weeks. And the reason I appreciate that so much is because it's not about the terminology. Like, it's good to have it, it's good to know it, but it's about being able to understand the principles, the values within an agile ecosystem, and how you really need to convey, what the real point is, and not getting hung up on certain terminology. And I just say that for those who may be listening in the agile world. Like, sometimes we really get hung up on the terminology. And I really appreciate when folks on the business side and stakeholders really get the concepts, even if they're not saying the terminology that everyone's necessarily looking for. So I really appreciated that. So when the backlog, specifically as you we're talking about that, and as Sean was saying, really being able to essentially prioritize those things that are going to produce the most value, or the highest value at that time. As you said, it all has to get done, right? So it's not a matter of whether or not it has to get done, but it does sometimes come down to a matter of, well, what should you do first? And how should things be prioritized based off of the fact that maybe you are scaling up, or maybe you're now scaling down, or maybe you're scaling back up, whatever that case is. So what has that experience been like from business and stakeholder point of view, and collaborating with product owners who are managing those product backlogs that are reflecting the feedback that you're giving every couple of weeks? And then you see that stuff actually happening. What has that experience been like?
Well, I think, for us, it was about, what if this happens with business, how can we pivot? What can we repurpose out of what we've been developing should our business needs change? And so that's what has been helpful for us, is to be able to kind of look into those stories and understand what is being developed, and then knowing what's changing with the business. And, right now everything is changing so fast and constantly that we're constantly having to pivot. So it has really helped us, kind of understand, okay, if this shifts, or if our direction over here in the business changes, and looking at the stories and working with our teams, how could we repurpose what we've already developed or what we're moving forward? And then we're able to kind of take what's still to come and basically rework it. And I think giving that feedback back to the team so that they can go back and understand, okay, they said they wanted this, but now we're talking about this. And it's, it's easy for them to kind of, I don't want to say easy, but, they're able to kind of understand the business needs and be able to kind of go back and rework what has been done or refocus.
Yeah.
And even if I could add to that, because I know being the Agile journey, there was a certain project timeline that we were kind of building towards, and externally that got changed on us. So, kind of what we were building towards. So we also reevaluated from what we've built, is there anything, because now, our implementation is pushed out, can we pull some of the stuff that was never intended for the current business and bring that in? So that was never part of the scope, but that's exactly what we did. And so we're actually using that software ahead of time. So while external timelines shifted, we were in a position to evaluate, and while it was never the intent, to get quicker benefit from our software.
Wow. Yeah, that is a really powerful pivot there. So let's say if we backed up prior to this Agile journey and the exact same scenario took place, and you had your 12 or 18 month, project plan in place, and you were working through that plan, and 4 months into it, that happened. How would that have likely gone in that scenario versus what happened taking an Agile approach?
Unfortunately, we've experienced those time and time again. Is, the business had to make that big commitment, we were going, and then before you were really put at a position, do you go forward even though that, the world has changed, or do you honestly shelf it and take your lumps and then go on to something else? So unfortunately, before our Agile journey, that's kind of the world that I grew up in, lived, and experienced. And I know Kim probably can attest to that too.
Well, yeah, and by shelving it, the resources go away, and those resources don't come back in the same way that you had them before. So to bring back to kind of restart the whole project, you're having to hire a whole new team that now has to get up to speed. And that's just, you lose so much time in that transition. So it's been great having this smaller team that has kind of stayed intact, that has been able to still move the project forward with resources that have understood, and the roadmap is there, for us to step right back into. Whereas with other projects, if it got shelved, budgetary needs, those people would get shelved as well. So, and they're going to leave and move on. It's, when we're ready to get back in, we're not going to just be able to kind of bring them back. So
and shelved was a polite term. A lot of times it never comes back down. It's a sunk cost. It was waste.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, is it fair to say that one, it quite frankly, it was just a cost savings, to take this approach, because you could repurpose and not, have that, type of waste there. But then the other thing that I was thinking about was the ability to really see a return on investment sooner. Taking this approach, even to some degree, not knowing exactly what the return on investment was going to be, because you didn't know, you couldn't foresee the pivot happening. But one of the things that I, have observed working with you all that I think has been really great is the ability to repurpose and the ability to say, okay, we know that we're building this. What are all the benefits in areas that we can utilize this technology in that we're building? And I think that, has definitely been great. But as far as the return on investment, is that a fair statement to say you've gotten a return on investment a lot sooner and able to see it better maybe than in times past?
I know in times past, and I'll take it and then pass it to you, Kim, but the business had to decide on what are the one or two big initiatives. And it would be a long time until we returned them. The world would change, and we're like, well, this is what you asked for at the time. And then so kind of the value wasn't there. So without a doubt, we're able to see smaller deliveries sooner and get them implemented. So over to you, Kim.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I can't really speak to the return on investment, because I feel like this is a longer term project and we're just, maybe in the middle of it. Sean would probably say we're still on the beginning of it, but so I'm not ready to kind of make a comment on return on investment, but I feel my gut and everything tells me that there's going to be huge return on investment with it, and it may not be in, cost savings or, things that we can maybe put on paper and absolutely see, but from a, customer experience and all integrated and, the future, seeing, the possibilities, there's definitely return there.
And Quincy, I know you said return on investment, but I interpreted that as immediate business benefit. And Kim, you've probably seen where it was never intended, but since we had it, we developed it, let's pull some of that functionality forward. We would have never had that before in our old project management.
Yeah. All right. So I want to switch gears just a little bit and kind of talk through more of the human side of things so Kim, you mentioned earlier about the collaboration and being able to have that feedback and so forth. And working with you all at Suddath, you're a big family, like I saw that pretty quickly, like it's a big family. And within families, right, you laugh together, you cry together, like you experience everything together. And one of the things that I've noticed as well in the sprint reviews in particular is how much interaction there has been and has grown over time between the business and in the technology area, and the amount of it's not just feedback, but it's almost like camaraderie, that's at the time. Can you speak to that some?
I feel like this whole process is teaching us about being better teams. And when I say team, I mean more of the global team, because I sit on these sprint reviews and I'm like, the camaraderie and the like, go team, go. And wow, that's really great. I'm like, wow, this is like so refreshing. We need to adopt this in all of our team meetings and such. So I feel like if anything, it's helped our culture so much better, because now I see some of the high fives and the great job. I see that permeating into other groups and other meetings that I sit on, and I feel like, oh, that's just the way it felt in that sprint review. So I feel like our teams are kind of adopting that and taking it onward. So I feel like it's helping our culture even more so. But maybe our family feel kind of was just fostered in this environment, and it's kind of
Mhm.
permeating out. But it is definitely refreshing to see, and I love, and it's every time, every
Yeah.
meeting I sit on, somebody is kind of cheering on somebody's successes, and it is nice to see.
Yeah, it is. And it doesn't go without acknowledging, those areas that are challenge areas. If for some reason a team didn't meet their sprint goal, they're very transparent about it.
Mhm.
But that level of camaraderie and we're in this together, type thing is still present. And I agree, it hasn't fizzled out. It just keeps going, which is great. Like I enjoy seeing that.
Mhm.
What about you, Sean? Is there anything that you've seen or anything that stands out to you in this area as well?
Yeah, I know. I kind of agree with Kim, just the camaraderie, working together. I know in times past we had silos within the different crafts, and a lot of it would be just throwing it over the wall. And kind of through this journey, kind of structuring our teams where they're all accountable for the sprint goal, for achieving that. And we've kind of seen, and it's been a journey. It wasn't automatic, but over time, how do they kind of really kind of gel as that team rather than, well, I did my piece, so it must be
Mhm.
your issue. And I mean, you talked about it is people. Is it perfect? No. There's personalities, but through that, just through all the different ceremonies and the likes there, we're able to refocus on what the goal is, the objective, and kind of work together, in that self-managing team.
Nice. So I wanted to ask Kim, in the process of either reporting up or reporting out to your peers, uh, how has the amount of collaboration, or maybe not the amount, but how has having the collaboration and getting the feedback and being close to what the delivery teams are delivering, how has that, if it has, helped with your communications reporting up and out?
Sure. Well, I think to begin with, it would be nice if we could involve our whole team in this process, but that's impossible. I mean, it just wouldn't be a good work product if you had so many people involved. So it's been helpful for me to kind of understand, what we're developing, what it's going to do for our teams, to be able to, couple things. One, share with my team to say, hey, I'm on this project, and just be aware this is coming down. You're going to love this. To be able to really include them in on what is happening. But then also, as things get more finite, and I need to bring others in, it has helped me kind of say, oh, I really need, Marcy in this process, because she's going to be integral to kind of help us push this forward even more. So I've been able to kind of bring others in that I felt, could really help with the project. So from that aspect on the reporting out, it's helped me kind of tell people, what we're working towards, what it's going to do, and get frankly excited about, the features that we're working towards, and how it's going to improve the way we do things today, and then garner that excitement throughout. And then reporting up, not so much, because I think, what's nice is we have a leader that is very invested in the process and wants to be involved. So he has been involved throughout the process. So, while we have reported up somewhat, he's been right there with us and kind of seeing things as it goes. So, but definitely the reporting out. But maybe with another leader, I would, be able to give them more information, but just not necessary on our team.
Mhm. Nice. And so same question for you, Sean, because I know your reporting structure may be a little different than Kim's. So how has that been impactful for you reporting either out or up?
Yeah, because I know Kim talked about, our business unit president, but, our CEO, reporting out, we meet biweekly from that perspective. And just having the base of excitement and level, because I think in previous projects, you would just report out to the stakeholder and it may trickle down, whereas it's really kind of flipped on its side and the buzz is kind of out there with the leaders and the subject matter experts. So that excitement's there. So while I can present it, I got, a handful of other people in the room who can, justify that claim or even kind of add to it. So it just kind of shows, I guess, the breadth of knowledge. So whereas before it's trust me, it's going well. Now, the masses are behind it and supportive of it, and so it's definitely been easier to report out, and I think even just the frequency and kind of the level there, it's building confidence and it's validation. Are we building the right things? Are we headed the right direction? Whereas before, we were committed. It took a long term to change a steamliner, whereas now we can pivot as needed.
Nice. All right. So we've talked about how working in this way, working in Agile ecosystem, how that has been beneficial, what scaling up and scaling down, ramping up, ramping down, what those things have looked like, reporting out, reporting up, and so forth, and the collaboration. But everything couldn't possibly be great, right? So I'm sure there were some things in retrospect that you would say, or I would think, there would be some things that you would say, well, looking back on it, maybe we could have done this part a little different, or maybe that part might have been a better experience had we done it that way. Is there anything like that, or anything looking back in retrospect, as you've been going down this journey, that you would say, yeah, maybe going forward, we could do this or do that. That might be a little different.
From my perspective, my only comment would be, I'm always one that's wondering what's happening next. So I think this process does a great job of saying what we're doing right now, what we did last week, what we've done previously. I would like to have a better view of the entire map, the entire process. Not to say, that we'll be discussing it, but I just kind of want to know what's up ahead. So I think if anything could be done differently would be to have more transparency on the journey, not just where we've come from and where we're at right now, but the looking ahead. Sean does a great job of giving us, what that roadmap timeline looks like. But I want to understand a little bit more about what are the milestone deliverables that are happening up ahead. Just because it helps me kind of understand, okay, are we on track? Are we, getting behind, or where are we in the journey?
Nice. All right. And what about you, Sean?
Yeah, I know for me, because we're building an ecosystem, multiple products, multiple functionalities, I guess how we organize the teams, historically, we are kind of a mid-sized family company, and so we have to wear many hats. And so originally, I think we were, taking people and saying, well, you could do 25% on this project, 50 here and 25. So kind of shared resources, and that's kind of where we came from. And so that's just what we have to do. And I think that was one of the lessons learned, is there certain roles, while in an ideal world, they can properly time slice, but when they're coming down, they're part of a product team and they have a deliverable, but now they're part of 3 different teams. How do they focus? How do they spend their time? I think that's the one lesson learned. We had too many shared resources to start, and just logically, it fit the plan really well, but on the execution side, it kind of fell down because at some point in time, there's only so many hours in the day, and how do you prioritize and focus? And that was kind of bleeding over to the wellness of the delivery of the team, which kind of roll over into kind of the morale and the camaraderie there. So I think that's one of our biggest lessons learned.
Yeah, and I've always thought of that as really kind of as an outsider looking in and just observing. I've always kind of thought of that as being kind of maybe a carryover from the origins of Suddath. Because what I have in my mind is, hey, we have stuff on the truck. We have to get the truck there. We got to take the stuff off the truck. I'm driving the truck. I'm unloading the truck. I'm packing the stuff. We have to do it all. And I've just seen that as, okay, well, maybe that's just a carryover, in the culture and seeing how that has moved. But you all have done such a good job of beginning to recognize that and making some pivots and adjustments around that. And, I think that's commendable, how you all have progressed, from that in the ways that are needed, I should say. But I think that has, really been great. So there was something that you said, Kim, that I wanted to come back to. I'm trying to remember what it was because it was really good. What was it?
Well, while you're remembering, one other thing I wanted to add to the, kind of elaborate more on what I said about not understanding the whole journey. What scares me a little bit is that, we get into these sprint reviews every 2 weeks and they're so collaborative. What I worry about is that we start adding on features, adding on things that then will kind of be like what I would call scope creep. I don't know what you call it, but so I worry a little bit about, who is kind of keeping us on track because we are so collaborative and keep wanting to develop more. How do we kind of make sure that we're sticking true to, our budgetary constraints or our time constraints? And I don't really know how that works because I'm not orchestrating that. Probably Sean could speak more to that and help put my mind at ease there, but I don't know.
Yeah, so actually, Sean, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it's prioritization is a lot of it, and we kind of, there are certain timelines and, where is good enough. But yeah, without a doubt, kind of the concept of MVP, was instrumental here, just working that with the business, because historically, if somebody's projects got funded, they had some dedicated resources, so they'd want to get everything they possibly could, because once those resources shift to another project, they're not coming back. So moving from that mindset of, well, I got to get everything, because then maybe 5 years before my project gets funded again. Whereas going forward, we can be a little more agile and, deliver something, have that benefit. I think the fear of, if I don't get it now, it's never going to come, has been alleviated.
Nice. Yeah, and one of the things I was going to add, and I completely agree with everything that you just said, Sean, is one of the beauties in taking an agile approach, and specifically with Scrum, which is the framework that you all have been using for the particular area that you've been overseeing, Sean, is that in the old world, yes, you would have that scope creep, you would have gold plating, that starts happening. In this world, you can capture all those things so that you don't lose sight of them. They're in the product backlog, but then to Sean's point, things are being prioritized in a way that you don't allow the scope creep to really happen, because it's not creeping its way in because it's just not the priority item. Now, if it is a priority item, then that's exactly where it should be. And if it's not, then it's lower, down in the product backlog. But it's not lost. And that's one of the things that I think is, really great and beautiful, with this process in this framework, that you don't lose those things. So we are really close, winding up to our time. So I know that you're still on the journey, and it's a journey, as we said. Is there any parting suggestions or recommendations or words or anything that you would have for someone else, different organization in the business, stakeholders that are at the beginning of their journey, that you would say or you would impart to them?
I go first, Kim?
No, I'll let you go first, Sean. While I think about my answer.
Sure. I guess trust the process. Know that it is a process. As we kind of went through this, there was growing pains. Change is never easy. And I know one of the mottos that my managers, instilled on me is, fail fast. So, be okay with going down a road, and then recognize if it's not working out, use your resources. I think it's been instrumental. AgileThought's kind of helped source our team, but also coaching. We kind of knew that we couldn't do it on our own conceptually. I think a lot of us had even been to training. We kind of read up on what we needed to do, but kind of partnering someone like with AgileThought who's done it before has really gotten us a lot up to speed a lot quicker on that journey as well. I think that's been, don't think you have to do it on your own. And we're not perfect. We're getting better. We've got a good rhythm now, but evaluate what's working well and be open to making pivots and changes. And probably, and we've kind of come around to this is, there are no magic answers. What's right for our organization will work for our organization, may not work well with another project or another organization. So just, I guess, be flexible.
And I would say embrace the process, double down on it, go all in, because without that, full investment of, just wanting to have it succeed, you get what you put into it. So, and I've seen, we've had a couple teams and other development here, and you've heard stories. Well, they weren't as invested as this team is, and the success or failure kind of shows. So I think, just making sure that everybody is invested in the process and really embraces it will give you a good quality experience with the process.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate that, Kim, and I appreciate that, Sean. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you for sharing your insights on the other side of Agile. Really appreciate it. And it's been very fun and insightful having this conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Quincy.
All right.